Hello, everyone. This is Jim Okerzinski with your week 15 lecture video. I'd like to begin this week's lecture video just with a review of the timeline. Friday, the 30th, peer review number 2 is due, and then responses on Sunday to discussion board 18. Now, I've reviewed discussion board 18, saw many really great initial post there about revision and looking at a paragraph of their draft, applying the concepts and ideas behind the sections in the Curious Researcher on scrutinizing sentences and paragraphs. So I urge everyone to take control of their draft and the revisions, complete those activities throughout your draft. Also, I have been reviewing and looking at excuse me, all of the peer reviews. There are many fine, solid reviews out there, really digging into the detail. Okay, so I want to emphasize at this time that I have reviewed all my drafts, all the drafts that have been submitted to Canvas, the first drafts. I review this from an instructor perspective and what I'm looking for in a particular draft. Now, the peer reviews are your opportunity to test your essay out on an audience. So the peer reviews provide an alternative perspective on your first draft. So let's keep that in mind. Since the final draft is due Tuesday, I want to address what I call preparing the final manuscript. So if we look at PowerPoint in this section, I want to go over the little do's and don'ts that wrap up chapter 5. I am going to save the screencast video on Sunday to talk about our next project, which is the multimodal or regenering of your research essay topic. So I want to save some time for that on Sunday night. So it is exactly what the process in a section in the book talks about, preparing the final manuscript. You can see now we've spent a great deal of time developing this research topic, working through the annotated, the double entry, the first drafts, the peer reviews, all the discussion board activities, all designed to really focus on the final draft. And the final draft will be assessed with great expectations because of this time factor and how we've how we've contributed to the research and writing process all the semester. So I want everyone to take a really good look at the MLA conventions. It's mentioned in the textbook. There's a link in the electronic copy of the textbook to the Appendix A. Appendix A, the MLA guidelines there are really a valuable resource. So what I have here is the MLA guidelines from the assignment. I urge everyone to please read the assignment, final essay assignment thoroughly, closely, before you prepare your final draft for submission. Here are all the criteria about margins and in-text citations and page numbers and font sizes. So I urge everybody to scrutinize their draft for these particular criteria and guidelines. Proofreading is really going to be an important part of this. Now I know you've already, run through some of the sections on your draft and looking at exercise 5.1 after looking at this discussion board 18. Okay, how can you proof on a computer? Right? Some of you might be able to struggle with sentence structure or grammar. Grammarly is a valuable resource if you want to download that. They have a free version, and then they also have a one where they charge, and it's a little bit more premium of the services. But even the free version can help out some people. Okay, sometimes just the old-fashioned way of printing out a paper and just slowly reading it, looking at it word for word, is a little bit different than looking on a screen. Sometimes we take a screen for granted. We kind of skim through words on a screen because that's usually the way we look at a phone, we look at a computer, we look at a website. Well, that's all great when we can skim, and we've developed these schemas in our brains about how um, content should be delivered to us. That's perfect. But at this particular time, you have to be able to slow down and read each word and be very diligent in your proofing. And printing is usually the best way to do that. Often I didn't see too many of them in the drafts, but there are those commonly confused words like there, and there, or no and now, or already, or advice or advise. Some of these kind of get by spell check. My favorite example that I give is form and from. Both words are spelled correctly, but the context may differ. Okay, make sure about your possessives. And one item is vague pronoun references. Make sure that the pronoun is in close relationship to the noun that modifies or takes the place of. So if it's John Smith in one sentence, you can say he continues in another sentence. However, when you return to another portion where John Smith, you should use the name again, because sometimes if you keep using he, it gets confusing exactly who you're speaking of, right? Subject verb agreement, okay, singular or plural, make sure they stay the same. I always mess up is and are. I realize that in my writing, and I always scrutinize that particular construction when I'm using that um, verb. Okay, punctuation of quotations. Just remember now, if you're using a parenthetical here, the period goes outside the parenthetical. If there is no parenthetical, then the period goes and punctuation goes inside the quotation mark. Please try to overuse commas. Just use your standard sentence boundaries. Okay, you can subordinate, coordinate. That's a good strategy to keep in mind. Okay, and then the parenthetical citation again. Make sure the period is always on the outside. Names need to be capitalized. Remember, proper capitalization. This is the second course of the one-year writing program, right? They have to turn around and you should be able to understand what needs to be capitalized and what doesn't need to be capitalized. If you're unsure, then look it up in something like Grammarly or even Google. It's always important. And then you want to make sure that you're proofreading before you click that final submission to Canvas. All right. So 10 common things to avoid. That's the way the chapter 5 ends up. Once again, I will be talking about the multimodal project in Sunday's screencast video. So if you have any questions or issues, reach out to me via email. Good luck.